leading the WASP movement, which the Washington Post described as a multicultural coup. Angela has since gone on and currently the director of policy and planning for the State of Maryland Social Services Agency, the Department of Human Resources. Upon completion of her master's in public policy from Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government, Lagdameo joined Governor Martin O'Malley's administration and served as a senior analyst in the Governor's Office of Policy. Currently, Angela is co-director of U.S. Strategy for Teach for the Philippines. As a Teach for America alumnus, she is still committed to shrinking the achievement gap around the world. While receiving her Bachelor's of Arts at the University of Maryland and graduating in 2002, Angela Lagdameo was also the first Asian American female to be our Student Government Association president. Today, she's still looking for the next Filipina to take that charge. So all the young ladies in the audience, keep that in mind. I hope you follow her footsteps and give her a round of applause as she comes to share.
Wow, isn't it amazing to be here? I just have to hand it to the students, especially Andrew and Tyler and your entire executive board. You've done an amazing job tonight. I also want to recognize just our living legend. We are so honored by your presence, Major General Taguba. Also, we are here, and our presence represented here are First Secretary for Ambassador Quisha, Emil Fernandez, Commissioner of the White House Initiative, Kuya Ben de Guzman, and a special shout out to my beloved new and veteran terrapins, especially to Dean Hamilton, Dr. Janelle Wong, Tita Gloria Buis, Kuya Jen Douse, and my better terrapin half, my fiance, Earl Cabellin. And of course, thank you all of our aunties and kuyas who are here, past presidents of FCA, also, of course, our universal mentor, Tita Menzi, thank you. So tonight's theme is about inheriting history. When I think about inheriting history, I think about a generation of students 20 years ago. They had big green print computer screens, dot matrix printers. The chat on America Online was a fairly new and amazing technological advancement. And their version of social media was going to Blockbuster Video and renting a VHS movie to watch together. Where Champion was in and techno was hot. These students arrived at University of Maryland's campus worrying about getting the grade, marveling about life in the dorm, and waiting for their moment. The moment they'd realize who they were. They couldn't construct the moment or force its coming, but it came. The realization of who they were in the history they inherited. This is the story. As Tina sat pouring through the thick phone book-looking course catalog, she found one course of its kind, Asian American Experience. Relegated to a limited audience, honors students. She was stunned. Was she supposed to be happy that at least there was one course? But the course description intrigued her, and she agonized. Hey, why can't all students take this? Where are the other courses like this? Why is Filipino misspelled? P-H-I-L-I-P-I-N-O, really? Is this an indication of the level of understanding this campus has about us? It nagged her, but she took the course, and it brought many epiphanies. Filipinos immigrated to the United States as early as the 16th century. There was a phrase for what she suffered, model minority myth. There was a common struggle, families unable to navigate government or educational systems because of language barriers. Parents expecting their children to be doctors because they worked too hard for their education. And stories of being bullied with slurs, chick, gook, jack, which reminded them that they weren't Americans, they were perpetual immigrants, and this country didn't belong to them. Tina, along with her peers, had a greater revelation. Their legacy was in their blood. She pursued her education outside of the four walls of the classroom and found that Esperanza Palting, her Lola, topped the board of pharmacy in the Philippines, came to the United States as a Barber scholar, graduated with a doctorate from the University of Michigan in 1936, and later invented Escanol. Tina's father, Bobby, immigrated to the United States at the age of 16, charged with forging a life for his 9 other siblings to follow. And after extending her tourist visa, Tina's mom stayed in the United States and was granted a work visa as a computer programmer. Tina had parallel journeys through course literature and her own piecing together of her history. And yet, as satisfied as she and her peers were after this course, it ended. It was unfair that their plunging journeys were stunted after this one course. It seemed like the big book of college had selective chapters and confined opportunities to delve into American history. It slammed shut on her. Tina and her classmates needed others to share her frustrations. Many did, but Maryland, as an institution, required convincing. There were no dedicated courses on Filipino American, Korean American, Chinese American, Indian American, etc. Nothing Asian American outside of an honors course. Their histories were missing. This was personal. Their families worked to get them to college. Because of families who fled their home countries, families that worked in fields pulling pineapples from the ground, families that had professional degrees from their sending countries but were underutilized, driving taxis or working in the tourism industry, because of them, their sacrifices, they could go to the University of Maryland to get the most out of their education. Their tuition dollars were supposed to be less about an admission ticket and more about discovering the promise of America. Tina felt this grave incongruence from the institution that claimed to be the flagship of diversity in Maryland. Administrators claimed there was a lot, or enough to offer. After all, there was that paragraph of the Chinese contribution to the Transcontinental Railroad, and in that one chapter of that American Studies course, there was, oh wait, there's East Asian Studies. That should be sufficient, since students could learn about Oriental art and the Far East. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Slam after slam. Behind closed doors, it was a futile attempt at a win for more courses. So, Tina created her own major, multicultural studies, an eclectic approach to figure it out. Her answers were embodied in her discoveries: Yuri Kuchiyama, Philip Veracruz, Che Guevara, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. She had a playbook of inherited history, and time was of the essence. She committed her entire college career to a vision she saw: you all, 20 years later. She also determined that the campus needed to be different before her sister, me, got to the campus. Throughout her college career, she was so urgent about things. History hung in the balance, but I felt perfectly content with that. I had the, I'm just a cheerleader syndrome. Actually, I wasn't a cheerleader. I was a soccer player. But you know that show Heroes? Anyone?
Yeah.
Well, I did it before Earl got me addicted to Netflix, and I discovered classics like 24, The Wire, and Heroes. Semi-spoiler alert, there is a cheerleader, but she has superpowers. Peter Petrelli gets a cryptic message: save the cheerleader, save the world. After a bloody mini battle, and he saves the cheerleader, he says to her, "Are you it?" Meaning, are you the one that inherited this genetic code? Are you the one that history relies on? Are you it? Before she ran off with a seed of destiny planted in her mind, scared and confused, possibly grateful, possibly resentful, she manages, I don't know, I'm just a cheerleader. So I had cheerleader syndrome. But Tina saw that history would be dependent on all of us. My role, your role. Despite my lack of understanding of Maryland's or my own potential, she held on to that day that there would be a Filipino American Studies program, the day that a student could get a minor in Asian American Studies, the day that there would be an entire Asian American Studies program and open to all students. She didn't accept the I'm just a cheerleader syndrome for herself, me, her peers, who thought it was too much. This is too much to do, since they already had a major in life going on. Or she didn't accept it for you, who holds the next wave of community and global activism. She and her fellow activists may not have had instant access and present-day social media, but they had chalk. They had fortune cookies. They had traditional dress. They had creativity and understanding. They had an inheritance, one that, like the characters and heroes, was written in their genetic code. They unlocked the power of their own family stories and their once stifled passion. They chalked the campus with Asian American Studies Now. They passed out fortune cookies to administration, who opened their fortunes. Asian American Studies Now. And they dressed up as stereotypes and picketed outside of the Stamp Student Union with signs telling them that they weren't the model minority myth. And with Asian American Studies Now. They had news and papers reporting on this, and the campus got blitzed. So, no one could ignore or shrug their urgency off. Tina spent her college career fighting to get Asian American Studies. In her senior year, I came onto campus, took the torch, didn't try fighting my inheritance, and saw Asian American Studies through the vote in the campus Senate by my junior year. I spent my college career holding a torch, a light to illuminate where we, as a community, could be stronger. I spent all my college years building on that foundation that was laid before me by many of you. But standing up new efforts, fighting different battles, and eventually gaining the trust of a student body that elected me as the first Asian American female to be Student Government Association president. Woo. This is the small foundation that you walk on in this Maryland space. The work is never done. We are here tonight for a reason, to support efforts to keep our inheritance through Filipino and Asian American Studies. And as I wrote as my personal plug in my bio, to find the first Filipino male to become SGA president, or even the next Filipina after a decade of SGA leaders. There's a great inheritance for you. It's in your genetic code. We're Filipino, Asian Americans, activists. We have the creativity, the love for family, a faith in a mighty God, and a community that deeply cares for one another. What kind of history do you want to inherit? What kind of history do you want others to inherit? For me, among many of my passionate convictions, I want the 51 leaders who are committed to teach for the Philippines to close the achievement gap and reach even some of the 8 million kids that will drop out by the 6th grade. I want children, despite their socioeconomic status or any other barrier, to have a chance at an excellent education. So I'm doing my part with Teach for the Philippines. As you think about what kind of history you want to pass on, here are my parting 3 critical points for you. Reminders for all you history makers. Number 1, take every opportunity to recognize the history about you. You will learn just how small and yet significant you are. You will gain in humility when you take each moment as one to learn from. When the instinct to recognize and appreciate becomes second nature, you will grow in leaps and bounds in humility, and this will get you further than any ego. 2, disrupt apathy and hopelessness. Yes, you will experience grief, or trouble, or heartache, or confusion, but despite that, you have a God of love, compassion, and goodness, the one who breathed in your unique genetic code to give you full capacity to fight human trafficking, child labor, corruption, or poverty. Disrupt apathy and hopelessness by embodying the antithesis. Let your hope be the naysayer's kryptonite, and your joy be contagious, a contagious antidote to fearmongers. And finally, 3, there are no limits for you. Call it social entrepreneurship, philanthropy, or strategic international development. Do some part, your part, and participate. As long as it looks like contributing to the sustainability of the Philippines' rich natural resources, or to the sustenance of our needy families here and abroad, or bringing awareness to any other noble cause, you are limitless in your capacity to do something. It is in your genetic code. It's in the history you inherited. Thank you.